Hey everybody, it's the Georgie verse. And the thing is, we're going to be doing something interesting today. We're going to be rereading chapter 16 of the Heir, but it's going to be interesting because I'm going to be reading it off my braille display today, so just work with me. And if we get cut out, I'm sorry. Yeah. I found the book, so I just have to find the chapter. Took me a while. I did download another book called The Heir, and it was the wrong book. It was mostly about the same thing, but it was the wrong. It was by the wrong person, and you need the right person. But my editor lost the chapter, and that's not her fault. Like, she's very helpful, so I don't blame her at all. Here we go. I did it. Okay, I'm very happy. Okay. Ready? Chapter 16. Work didn't make me feel better. I was still very unsettled about last night with Hale. And any time Aaron and I fought, it was like I lost my equilibrium. The whole planet was off its axis. Adding Josie's ridiculous comment to the mix was the cherry on top. My head was swarming with other people's words and my own questions, and I was positive that the day was going to end up being a waste. "You know," Dad said, peeking up from his work, "I still got distracted early on, too." "It gets easier to manage as the group gets smaller." I smiled. "Fine. Let him think I had a crush." "Sorry, Dad." "Not at all. Do you need me to cover your work for you today? Take the afternoon off?" I straightened my papers. "No, that's not happening. I'm perfectly capable." "I wasn't doubting you, love. I've already taken so much time away from work for this. I don't want to neglect my duties." I'm fine." "I'm fine." "No, I'm fine. I'm fine." I didn't mean to sound so snippy with him. "All right." He adjusted his glasses and started reading again. I tried to do the same. What did Aaron mean? It was more than the date. That upset me. I knew why I was mad. And since when had I given him a hard time about Camille? Sure, I didn't talk to her very much, but that was because we didn't have a lot in common. I didn't dislike the girl. I shook my head, focusing on the papers. "It would be fine if you needed to clear your head," Dad offered again. "You could go spend time with one of the selected and come back after lunch. Besides, you'll want to have something to talk about on the report." I felt a flurry of emotions, trying to figure out how I would discuss how exposed I'd felt after my date with Hale. Or how stunned I felt after my kiss with Kyle. Trying to balance the conflicted feelings around those two moments was dizzying without adding anything else. I went on a date last night, Dad. Isn't that enough? He swallowed as he thought. Eventually, you need to start alerting us when you have dates. A few pictures from some of them would be good for everyone. And I think you need at least one more date before Friday. Really? Really? I whined. Do something you enjoy. You're treating it like work. That's because it is, I protested with an incredulous laugh. It can be fun, Edlin. Give it a chance. He looked at me over his glasses, almost like he was daring me. Fine. One date. That's all you get, old man. That's all you get, old man, I teased. He chuckled. Old man is right. Oh, give me a minute. Okay. Dad went back to his papers, satisfied. I sat there, peeking furtively at him from my desk. He stretched often, rubbing the back of his neck, and even though there weren't any urgent tasks today, he ran his hands through his hair as if he was troubled. Now that Hale had put it in my head, I was going to be watching him often. I decided to make Braden my next target. Maybe Aunt May knew something, because Baden didn't come in brashly, or conversely, like he was trying to hide. When someone else stole a moment that should have been solely his at the tea party, he didn't make a fuss. And when I approached him for alone time, he returned the focus back to me. You play the piano, right? Baden asked when I invited him on a date. I do. Not as well as my mother, but I'm pretty proficient. I play the guitar. Maybe we could make some music. It wasn't anything I would have thought of. Perhaps music would mean less talking, though. But I was all up for that. Sure. I'll secure the women's room for us. Am I even allowed in there? He asked skeptically. When you're with me, yes. And I'll make sure it's empty. My favorite piano in the place is in there. Do you need a guitar? He smirked. Nah, I brought my own. Braden ran a hand over his cropped hair, seeming very relaxed. I was still attempting to come across as distant and impenetrable, but I could tell that there were a handful of guys who weren't bothered by my attitude at all, and Baden was one of them. What are the chances of the room being empty now? He asked. I smiled at his enthusiasm. High, actually, but I have work to do. He bent down, his eyes devilish. But don't you always have work to do? I bet you can make some time. I bet you can stay up till 3 a.m. if you had to. True, and it'll be all there when you get back. I clasped my hand. I clasped. I clasped my hands and considered it. I'm really not supposed to. He started chanting slowly. Skip it, skip it, skip it. My lips were pressed together, trying to hide my smile. Really, I ought to tell someone. I was going to have yet another undocumented date. But maybe I deserved one more. Next week, I bargained with myself. After this report, I'll worry about the cameras. Go get your guitar, I said, caving. Two minutes. He bolted down the hall, and I shook my head. I hoped he wouldn't tell everyone I was not a pushover. I walked to the women's room, expecting to find it empty, except for Miss Marley sitting alone in a corner reading. I was right. Your Highness, she greeted. It was one of those funny things. Plenty of people called me that. Well, when Mom's friends said it, they might as well have been calling me pumpkin or kiddo or baby. I didn't mind it, but it was always kind of strange. Where's Mom? She closed her book. Migraine. I went to see her and she made me leave. Any sound was excruciating. Oh, I was supposed to be having a date right now, but maybe I should go check on her. No, she insisted. She needs rest, and both your parents will be pleased for you to have a date. I considered. If she was really feeling that bad, maybe it would be better to wait. All right. Well, would it be okay if I use the room? Baden and I are going to make music. I squinted. I mean that literally, by the way. She giggled and stood. That's no problem at all. Is it weird for you, I asked suddenly, that Kyle is a part of this? That, I'm about to go on a date with someone who isn't him. Is it, okay? It was quite a shock to see you two near the front page of every paper, she said, shaking her head like she couldn't fathom how it had happened. Then she came close as if we were trying to keep a secret. But you forgot your parents aren't the only ones here who've been through a selection. I felt it like a downright idiot. Why hadn't I thought of that? I remember watching your father scramble to find time for everyone, trying to please those around him while searching for someone who'd be a good partner. And it's even harder for you because you're bigger than that. You're making history while trying to divert attention. Saying it's tough is an understatement. True, I admitted, my shoulders sagging under the weight of it all. I don't know how you and Kyle ended up, in that position. But I'd suppose he made it to the top of your list. All the same, I'm thankful to you. I was taken aback. Why? I haven't done anything. You have, she contradicted. You've given his parents time, your parents time, which is very generous of you, but you've given me time too. I'm not sure how much longer I can keep him here. Still knock. Keep him here. A knock came at the door. I turned. That'll be Baden. She placed a hand on my shoulder. You stay put. I'll let him in. Oh, Baden exclaimed when Miss Marley opened the door for him. She chuckled. Don't worry, I'm on my way out. She's waiting for you. Baden looked past her to find me, smiling the entire time. He looked so triumphant, so pleased to be alone together. Is that it? He asked, pointing just behind me. I spun, taking in the piano. Yes, the tone on this is wonderful, and this room has great acoustics. He followed me, and I could hear his guitar case bump into his leg, or a couch as he navigated through the maze of seats. Without asking, he found an armchair and pulled it up beside the piano. I trailed my fingers over the keys, doing a quick scale. Baden tuned his guitar, which was dark and worn. How long have you been playing? As long as I can remember. I think Mom sat me down next to her as a toddler, and I just went along with whatever she did. People have always said your mother was a fantastic musician. Oh, wait, sorry, wrong voices. How long have you been playing? As long as I can remember. I think Mom sat me down next to her as a toddler, and I just went along with whatever she did. People have always said your mother was a fantastic musician. I think I heard her play on TV once, or a Christmas program or something. She always plays a lot at Christmas time. Her favorite time of the year? He guessed. In a way, sure, but in others, no. And she usually plays when she's worried or sad. How do you mean? He tightened a string, finishing his preparations. Oh, you know. I hedged. Holidays can be stressful. I didn't feel right exposing Mom's memories, losing her father and sister during the same time of year, not to mention a horrific attack that nearly stole my father. I can't imagine being sad at Christmas time here. If she was poor, I could see why she'd be anxious, though. Why? He smiled to himself. Because it's hard to watch all your friends getting piles of gifts when you don't get any. Oh. He took the stab at our social differences in stride, not getting mad or calling me a snob, which some might have done. I examined Baden, trying to learn more. The guitar was old, but it was hard to make a call about his financial status while he wore palace-issued clothes. I remembered what Aunt May had said about his last name. You're in college, right? I asked. He nodded. Well, it's on hold for now. Some of my professors were thrown off, but most of them are letting me send assignments back to finish the semester from here. That's really impressive. He shrugged. I know what I want, so I'm willing to do whatever it takes to get it. I gave him a curious smirk. How does the selection fit into that? Wow, no holding back there. Again, no anger. He almost treated it as a joke. It's a fair question, I think. I started playing one of the classics Mom had taught me. Baden knew the song and joined in. I'd never considered how it would sound with strings. The music won, and we dropped the conversation, but we didn't stop communicating. He watched my eyes, and I studied his fingers. I'd never played with anyone before, other than Mom, and I was engaged in a way I didn't know I could be. We played on, with no more than two or three missteps across the entire song. Baden was beaming as we finished. I only know about a handful of classics. I only know about a handful of classics. Some Beethoven and Debussy. Debussy, mostly. You're so talented. I've never imagined songs like that. You're so talented. I've never imagined songs like that on a guitar. Thanks. He was only the slightest bit bashful. To answer your question, I'm here because I want to get married. I haven't dated much, but this opportunity came up and I thought, well, it might be worth a try. Am I in love with you? Well, not today. I'd like to know if I could be, though. Something about his tone made me trust he was being completely transparent. He was trying to find a mate, and I was someone he would never have met if he hadn't put his name in for the drawing. I'd like to make you a promise, if that's okay, he offered. What kind of promise? He plucked a few strings. A promise about us. If you're vowing to give me your unwavering devotion, it's still too soon. Baden shook his head. No, that's not in my plan. Okay, then. I'm listening. His fingers outlined a slightly familiar melody. Not a classic, but something I knew. I couldn't pinpoint it. If you found that I wasn't a reasonable choice for you, you'd send me home so you could focus on your other options. What I want you to promise me, though, what I want to promise you is this. If I can tell that you're not the right one for me, I'll tell you. I don't want either of us to waste our time. I nodded. I'd appreciate that. Good, he said smartly, then began bellowing. Well, she walks up the room with that smile, and those legs that go on for a mile. Eyes searching the room for a little fun. I laughed, finally recognizing the tune he was playing. It was a Choosing Yesterday song that I sang in the bath more often than I cared to admit. I can't look away from her face, until she starts dancing to that bass. I can't help it. That girl is number one. I joined in on the piano, giggling a little too hard to get all the notes right for the chorus. But we both sang along, botching up the melody and having too much fun to care. Oh, she can't be more than 17, but she's all grown up, if you know what I mean. She's the prettiest thing I've ever seen, yeah? She's my... Bam. She's my queen. I kept up with Baden through most of the song, even though I really only had experience with classical music. Why are you bothering with college? You should be touring. You should be touring, I cheered. That's my backup plan. If the Prince thing doesn't plan out. He was so candid, so real. Thanks for playing hooky with me. No problem. Thanks for playing hooky with me. No problem. I should get back to work, though. That was the shortest day in history, he complained. I shrugged. You would have had more time if you had waited until tonight. He huffed. Fine. Lesson learned. I pulled the cover back over the keys. As he placed his guitar in its case. You should take that to the others, I said. I bet they'd get a kick out of trying to play. What, my guitar? No, no, no. This is my baby. I watched as he gently petted the shabby case. If someone broke this, I'd be devastated. My dad got it for me, and it was hard. Earned. I tried to take good care of it. I'm like that with my tiaras. Baden laughed outright at me. What? He took his time, covering his eyes and shaking his head. Tiaras, he finally said. You really are a princess, huh? Did you think the last 18 years were a clever trick? I like that, you know. That you're protective of your tiaras like I do of my guitar. I like that. That's your thing. I pushed the door open, leading us into the hallway. Good, because they're beautiful. He smiled. Thanks for spending some time with me. Thank you. It was a pleasure. There was a pause. So, do we shake or hug or what? You may kiss my hand, I replied, extending an arm. He took it. Until next time. Baden kissed me quickly, bowed, and headed toward the room. I walked away, thinking of how Aunt May would say she told me so as soon as I saw her again. I knew I'd be the focal point of the report. Typically, I didn't mind giving speeches or updates, but tonight was going to be different. One, this would be the first time I'd faced the public since the parade, and two, I knew they'd want to hear about Kyle. I wore red. I felt strong in red, and I pulled my hair up, hoping I'd come across as mature. Aunt May hovered in the background, winking at me, while Mom helped Dad with his tie. I heard one of the boys yelp and turned to see Alex holding something sharp in his hand. He was rubbing his backside like he'd sat on it. I hunted, finding Austin in a corner, trying desperately not to laugh aloud. With all the company, the room felt crowded and added to my discomfort, which was why I jumped when someone called my name, even though it was hardly above a whisper. I'm sorry, Your Highness, Eric said. No, I'm just a little on edge. How can I help you? I hate to bother you, but I wasn't sure who to ask. Where is it most convenient for me to sit so that I can translate for Henry? I shook my head. How rude. I didn't even think about that. Here, follow me. I escorted Eric to the stage manager. We placed Henry in the back row of the auditorium-style chairs. Eric was given a seat behind him, so he was low enough so he wouldn't be seen, but close enough that Henry would be able to hear him. I stayed by them until they were settled. Henry gave a thumbs up, and Eric turned to thank me. I'll make sure to go to the stage manager next time so that I won't bother you. I apologize. It's fine, really. I want you to be comfortable, the both of you. Eric bowed his head and smiled shyly. You don't need to worry about my comfort, Your Highness. I'm no suitor. Evelyn, where are you? Mom called. I turned from Eric, running around to the front. Here, Mom. She placed a hand on her heart, like she had been racing. I couldn't find you. I thought maybe you were backing out on us. she said quietly as I approached. "Calm down, Mom," I said. "No," I replied, grabbing her hand. "I'm not perfect, but I'm no coward." Tonight's report centered around the women. Mom gave an update on province-run aid systems, encouraging others to follow the example set by three other provinces that were helping the homeless by donating food, as well as free classes on topics like managing finances and interviewing skills. Lady Bryce spoke about a drilling proposal that would affect a large chunk of central Ilia. It would benefit the county as a whole, but those 6 provinces would have to approve by a vote first. And then, of course, all eyes went to the boys. Gabriel stepped on the stage, looking as dashing as ever, and I could see a bit of a spring in his step. This was the 5th selection Ilya had witnessed, and he had overseen 3 of them. We all knew he'd found a replacement. We all knew he'd find a replacement once it was over, but he seemed so pleased that this would be his final role for the royal family. Of course, ladies and gentlemen, we will be dedicating a lot of airtime to charming young men of the selection. For now, how about we say hello to a few of them? Gabriel strode across the floor, looking for someone in particular. I wondered if he was having a hard time memorizing their names as I was. "Sir Harrison," he began, stopping in front of a sweet-faced boy with dirty blonde hair and dimples. A pleasure," Harrison greeted. "How are you enjoying the palace?" He beamed. "It's beautiful here. I've always wanted to come up to Angelus, so that alone has been a real treat." "Any challenges so far?" Gabriel prodded. Harrison shrugged. "I was worried that it would be all out, fist fights from dawn till dusk with the princess on the line," he said, gesturing over to me. I instantly arranged a smile on my face, knowing a camera would zoom in on me at any moment and at any second. "But the other guys have been great." Gabriel slid the microphone to the boy next to him. "What about you? Can you remind us of your name?" "It's Fox." "Fox Wesley," he answered. Fox had a bit of a tan, but unlike me, I could see that he wasn't born with it. He must spend a lot of time outside. "Honestly, and I hope I'm not alone here, but the first day and the biggest challenge was meal times. They set out like a dozen forks for each of us." A few people chuckled, and Gabriel nodded. You have to wonder where we possibly store so much cutlery." "It's crazy," mumbled the boy behind Fox. "Oh, Sir Ivan." "Yes?" Gabriel stretched to put his mic in front of him. "Yes, sir. Happy to meet you." "And you as well. How are you managing at mealtime?" Ivan held both hands in front of him as if this was very serious. "My current approach is using 1 fork for each bite, and then making a pile of them in the middle of the table. It's working so far." The room laughed even more at Ivan's ridiculous answer, and Gabriel stepped away from the group, turning to the cameras. Clearly, we have an extremely entertaining pool of candidates here. So why don't we take a moment to speak with the young lady who somehow has to narrow it down to only one? Ladies and gentlemen, Her Royal Highness Princess Edelyn Shreve. Go get him, Aaron whispered as I pushed myself out of my seat and crossed the floor, embracing dear Gabriel. Always nice to see you. Always nice to see you, Your Highness, he said, as I sat in the chair opposite him, center stage. And you, Gabriel? So here we are, 1 week into the first ever female-led selection. How would you say it's going? I gave an awkward, winning smile. I think it's going well. Of course, I still have some work to do each day, so we're off to a fairly slow start. Gabriel glanced back over his shoulder. Judging by the thinning crowd, I wouldn't say it's that slow. Batting my eyes, I giggled. Yes, about a third of the gentlemen invited to the palace have been eliminated. I have to trust my gut. And between our initial meetings and the information I've been given, I feel very confident about my choices. Gabriel inclined his head. It sounds like you've been using your head more than your heart at the moment. I fought the blush. I couldn't tell how well I'd done, but I refused to touch my face to check. Would you suggest that you fall in love with 35 young men at once? He raised his... Would you suggest that I fall in love with 35 young men at once? He raised his eyebrows. Well, when you put it that way. Exactly. I only have one heart, and I'm saving it. I heard sighs around the room, and I felt I'd gotten away with something. How many more lines could I dream up over the following months to keep everyone entertained and at bay? Then I realized I hadn't planned those words. I really felt them, and they escaped under pressure. It seems you may have let your heart lead the way at least once, he said knowingly. I have a picture to prove it. I watched as a huge picture of me and Kyle was displayed, and the room erupted with hoots and claps. Could we get him down here for a moment? Where's Sir Kyle? He hopped up from his place and sat on a chair next to me. Now this is a very unique position for me, Gabriel began, because I've known both of you for your entire lives. Kyle laughed. I was thinking about this the other day. My mom said I crawled on set as a baby, and you held me for the closing of the report. Gabriel's eyes widened. That's true. I'd forgotten all about that. I looked at Kyle, giggling at this story. That must have happened before I was born. So from the pictures, it looks like, perhaps, a childhood friendship is growing into something more. Kyle stared at me and I shook my head. No way was I going first on this. He finally caved. Honestly, I don't think either of us really thought the other was a possibility until we were forced to. Our families laughed boisterously. Although If he had gotten, although if he had gotten a haircut years ago, I might have considered it, I teased. Gabriel shook his head at us. Everyone's dying to know, how was this infamous kiss? I knew it was coming, but I was mortified. This was much worse than I had imagined it would have been. Having my private life on display. Mercifully, Kyle addressed it. I think I can speak for the both of us when I say it was a surprise. And while it was special, I don't think we're doing that. I don't think we're going to put too much stock into it. I mean, I've been spending time with these other guys, and so many of them would make a wonderful prince. Really? And would you agree with that, princess? Have you had one-on-one time with anyone else this week? It felt like Gabriel's words were on a delay. I didn't hear them until I'd processed everything Kyle had just said. Did he mean that? Did he not feel anything at all? Or was he only saying that to maintain some level of privacy? I snapped back into the moment and nodded enthusiastically. Yes, a few. Gabriel eyed me. And they were very nice. I wasn't really in the mood for this in the first place, and Kyle had made me doubt sharing anything at all. Gabriel said, turning to the group of the selected. Maybe we'll get some more information out of the gentleman in question. So, Kyle, you may head back to your seat. Now, who are the lucky men? Baden raised his hand, followed by Hale. Come on down, gentlemen. Gabriel started applauding, and the room joined in as Hale and Baden approached, and yet another chair was brought in. I considered myself pretty intelligent, but I could not think of a way to beg them to keep their mouths shut without actually using words. Only then did I realize how easily Kyle managed to do just that. I suppose there was something to be said for knowing each other forever. Now, what's your name again, sir? Gabriel asked. Hale Gardner. Hale Gardner. He pressed his tie, though it was already in place. Oh, yes. So, what can you tell us about your date with the princess? Hale gave me a shy smile, then turned back to Gabriel. Well, I can tell you that the princess is as smart and gracious as I always believed she was, and that she had a few good things. We had a few good things in common. We're both the oldest children in our families, and it was fun to talk about my work as a tailor with such a well-dressed young lady. I mean, she looks like $1,000,000. I ducked my head, trying to take the compliment playfully while staying on my toes. But beyond that, I hope you'll forgive me if I keep most of the details to myself. Hale added. Gabriel made a face. You're not going to tell us anything? Well, dating and falling in love are typically private things. It's kind of weird to talk about them on stage. Perhaps we'll get more from the next gentleman, Gabriel said impishly to the cameras. Remind us of your name again? Baden Trains. And what did you do with the princess? We played music. Princess Evelyn is rather talented as her mother. I heard Mom's aw in the background. And she's a lovely dancer, even if she's sitting down. Just so everyone knows, Princess is very up to date on current music. Baden laughed, and a few people joined in. And Gabriel pressed, and I kissed her hand. And I'm hoping for more kisses in the future. I wanted to die. For some reason, Baden's request for a kiss was much more embarrassing than talking about the one that had already happened with Kyle. The room made encouraging noises again, and I could see Gabriel was trying to milk this. Unfortunately for him, there really weren't any more juicy details. Kyle was the only one with anything remotely shocking to share, and that had already been soaked up. You look so disappointed, Gabriel, I remarked quickly. He made a little pout. I'm simply excited for you, Your Highness. I wanted to know everything that was happening. If we could ask you for your millions of viewers, I'm sure they'd agree. Well, don't worry. You, all of Ilya, will be happy to know that tomorrow I will be hosting a small party for the selected members in the palace household. Cameras will be there for the entire event, so everyone will get to peek inside the selection process. The room burst into applause again. I could see Josie practically floating out of her chair. She was so excited. Gabriel sent Hale and Baden back to their seats with the others before launching into questions again. What kind of party can we expect tomorrow, Your Highness? We'll be out in the gardens, enjoying the sun and spending time getting to know one another. That sounds like a wonderful plan. Very relaxing. Well, it will be, except for one tiny detail, I added, pinching my finger in the air. And what is that? After the party, there will be an elimination. Murmurs filled the room, and I knew, regardless of how the public felt about me, keeping the boys, meeting the boys tonight would make them curious about who stayed and who left. I continued, hushing the crowd with my words. It could be one person, it could be 3. I don't know. So, gentlemen, I said, turning back to the selected, come prepared. I can't wait to see how this all turns out, and I'm positive it'll be a wonderful event. Now, one final question before we call it a night. I sat up taller. Go for it. What are you looking for in a husband? What was I looking for? My independence, peace, freedom, the happiness I thought I had until Aaron questioned it. I shrugged. I'm not sure anyone knows what they're looking for until they find it.